Imitation really is the sincerest form of flattery. However, it seems that when it comes to video games, it's just what you gotta do to survive. Whenever a game pops out and is wildly popular, 9 out of 10 times you're gonna be seeing other ones take elements from it, or in certain cases, straight up rip them off. It's been going on as long as the gaming industry's been around with Pong clones. It's a term as old as time around these parts. In the early 90s, if you were a first-person shooter, you were a Doom clone, and that's just how it was. We've talked a lot about clones and rip-offs for a lot of specific titles, but what about the rest? In some cases, a game is incredibly niche, with only a tiny handful of releases taking up that inspiration. For instance, Katamari Damacy, a classic I stayed all the way up till 5 AM playing back in the day. Well, early on in the Steam days, there was The Wonderful End of the World, which is very clearly what it looks like on the screen. In 2008, this weird indie was the only thing that even came close to resembling the King of All Cosmos antics, and honestly, still is. Although that sucking in sound sure was a choice. So this one goes out to the inspirations, clones, and rip-offs from games not quite big enough for their own video. There's a million Diablo clones out there, but if you're looking for, say, games putting their own spin on Echo the Dolphin, look no further. Just don't be surprised when something called Shamu's Deep Sea Adventures also sucks. Haven't played it? That's fine, no one should.
You saved our beloved SeaWorld Adventure Park.
So yo, it's Austin, and today we're gonna be talking about a bunch of clones and rip-offs that you probably haven't played before. And sure, maybe you have, but if I titled this thing Video Game Clone and Rip-Off Grab Bag, no one's gonna understand. I've gone ahead and done a ton of digging into the video game vat of history to find a plethora of releases to talk about, mostly at random. We've got Mega Man clones, Sonic clones, Pikmin clones, and yes, there's even that one Cuphead clone to talk about. Yep, there's a Cuphead clone. No, there shouldn't be. But before we get started, grab your blades and get ready for today's sponsor, Devil May Cry Peak of Combat. Yeah, you heard me right. Do you ever think you'd get Devil May Cry in the palm of your hands? Well, here you go. Devil May Cry Peak of Combat is an authorized free-to-play mobile game that replicates the stylized action of the console classics. There's several characters from multiple DMC games, plenty of recognizable enemies and bosses, and it all feels pretty good. It's incredibly easy to pick up, fast-paced, and has all of that flexibility you would expect from a Devil May Cry. And by that, I mean triple S combos. The multiple character systems allow you to pull off some over-the-top aerial combos. You see enemies, you give them a little juggle and rack up the meter. All of the DMC elements that you would expect are here. There's the Bloody Palace where you can test your metal, and there's the PvP mode. It's balanced to put everyone on the same page, so there's no pay-to-win elements, and the only thing you can rely on is yourself. It feels pretty good on mobile, but you can also use a controller, and with that, you can really experience the character action gameplay and revisit some of the iconic scenes from the franchise. So if you want to hop into the world of Devil May Cry, click the link down below to download it today. You can also register on their website to get special bonuses, discount coupons, and gift packages. Click the link below today. Thanks to Devil May Cry Peak of Combat for the sponsor. But for now, we need to get back to the hot topic of the day. Video game clones and ripoffs that you didn't know existed. And there's nowhere better to start than with Unearthed Trail of Ibn Battuta Episode 1 Gold Edition. Can you tell what this one's about?
The most amazing secret of the Middle Ages.
Unearthed is probably, as you can guess, a take on the Uncharted series, originally released for the PlayStation 3 and iOS for some reason. This was created by a smaller team over in Saudi Arabia and racked itself up a whopping 11 on Metacritic. That is very good. You assume control of Faris Jawad, not Nathan Drake, as you're accompanied by your sister Dania and some of the best dialogue this side of the 2010s.
You were the one who always enjoyed raiding tombs and uncharting mysteries in video games.
This is off to a great start, especially since the camera was horizontal inverted by default. Who does this? Unearthed feels like a game that saw footage of Uncharted 1 and 2 and decided to try and replicate it without getting their hands on it. It's trying to emulate that Naughty Dog AAA budget, but it fails to get there. All of Faris's animations are max jank, the shooting feels terrible, there's no recoil on the pistol. For some reason, the enemies are programmed to only shoot when I come out of cover, like they just stop functioning. Uncharted and Assassin's Creed nailed parkour and climbing in the late 2000s, but old Faris here shimmying like it's 1996. Dude walks around crouching like he's got something in his pants. At least there's some variety after you explore the tomb and solve ancient puzzles that no one's been able to before, as in moving a stick from point A to B. You'll engage in some hand-to-hand combat. Oh, well, how about the ATV sequence? Faris doesn't need to look behind him when he shoots, he knows where the enemy is. Also, I hope you like this sound effect. I was ready to bail on this trail within 20 minutes of booting it up. Unearthed Gold Edition is this bad. Apparently, that would have been a third of the entire experience though, as episode 1 is barely an hour long. Let's go. Obviously, there was never an episode 2. Unearthed got slammed in reviews, and despite getting this gold release on Steam, never got a follow-up. They had announced a full-fledged sequel called Alrakaz in 2018, but well, it's 2024 now and no dice.
You did good back there. I'm proud of you.
I did good. Next up, let's go back, way back. The Nintendo Entertainment System is one of those consoles that has so many games that a ton of them are bound to be forgotten about. Especially if you are from a huge franchise like Mario, Final Fantasy, Castlevania, or in this case, Mega Man. Have y'all ever heard of the Krion Conquest?
There's a surprisingly small amount of actual Mega Man clones, especially from back in the day. There's a lot of fan games, things by Inti Creates, Mighty No. 9, and good old Rosenkreuz Stilett. But if you look back to the 90s, barely anyone was copying the Blue Bomber. That is until Krion Conquest, also known as Magical Kid's Dorothy. It's the first one of these to have a charging attack. Like, yeah, she did it before Rock. The Krion Conquest is exactly what it looks like. It's Mega Man, it's hard, it's even got similar physics. The main difference is that you get your full set of powers from the get-go. You can blast the entire screen with fire, use bouncy balls, and emulating Rush, the broom, which took me way too long to realize I could change its directions by shooting up, which means I got stuck on the first stage. I'm not really sure why they totally changed the name and cover of this. Imagine buying this game, the Krion Conquest, and its 80s fantasy romance novel cover featuring a woman with a Pope-esque hat to then be greeted with anime girls doing the Ninja Gaiden opening. Apparently, according to Japanese developer interviews, they were pushing a female protagonist since they were rarer back in the Famicom days. Of course, there was pushback like, boys can't relate to this, which is funny because I don't know anyone who looked at dumpy Mega Man and thought, wow, he's just like me for real. Krion here is alright, it's hard, it's not as good as Mega Man, but I think it's cool it exists, even if they removed all the cutscenes because in the early 90s, anime girls were terrifying. Also, hold up, is this Avengers Tower?
No.
Uncharted and Mega Man are games that you would expect to have clones and inspirations. Never in a million years did I think we'd see a Pikmin clone, let alone multiple. You probably know about Overlord, the one where you play as a Overlord, summoning minions to take on the 7 deadly sins. This one was neat and I liked it, but we can do weirder. Straight from the back half of the Simple series all the way to being repackaged for a Western audience, The Adventures of Darwin, also known as Simple 2000 Series Volume 99, The Primitive Man. If you don't know Simple, it's D3 Publishers' line of ridiculous low budget and cheap games put out for those that need a little micro game or two. These things range from whatever to good enough to form a franchise like Onechambara to 10 out of 10 classics like Power Shovel. The Adventures of Darwin is a bizarre take on Pikmin where you play as, well, a primitive man trying to beef out your tribe, except you start as Monkey. That should have just been the advertising campaign. Return to Monkey. The cycle's real simple. You go into a stage, grab supplies to level up your town, rinse, repeat forever. There's stronger enemies and bosses, and eventually you'll be running around with an army of 30 dudes hoping to do all of the things. Unfortunately, that's kind of all this one has to offer. It doesn't have the high highs that Pikmin has, or the cute, memorable world. You just grab resources over and over, take them to town, and grind out arbitrary numbers. You might say it's pretty simple. At least this thing was a budget title and launched at a budget price, so no harm, no foul, and the fact that anyone was trying to replicate Pikmin gets some respect from me. The Adventures of Darwin isn't great, it isn't bad, and it's certainly hard to say no to the little monkey on the loading screen. He's so cute.
But guess what? There's more. You would think that a game like Pikmin would maybe have like one clone, but nope, not the case. There's a few more hiding in the place that you would last expect, and I mean that. I don't think anyone thought Hotel Transylvania 3 Monsters Overboard was gonna be a Pikmin clone.
Moving our quality publisher over from D3 to Outright Games, Hotel Transylvania 3 was the first Pikmin-like on the Switch. Except instead of throwing small, cute little dudes, you're playing as not Adam Sandler and not Selena Gomez as you do a reverse Pikmin.
How positively interesting.
You're a family of vampires after all, which means every level takes place at night, which also means every level looks almost identical. Get ready for darkness. This is technically a licensed romp for the third film in the series, Summer Vacation, which I know next to nothing about, except that people really like this Mavis character who, according to the Hotel Transylvania fan wiki, has all of these personality traits, none of which is shown off here.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on it.
Right off the bat, you can tell this is doing the Pikmin thing, a little close to Overlord as well. You gather these gems with your little monsters in order to make more imps to do puzzles with. Certain ones have certain weaknesses, you can easily lose them, and glitches are not uncommon. The first boss fight happens right after you're introduced to these Wolfman imps who just get bodied because they like stinky plants, so you're just gonna spend a bunch of time trying to clean it up, and it's not very fun. This whole thing is kind of a drag. It's not terrible, but not particularly good either. I mean, watching Dracula in a Hawaiian shirt doing one-frame animations of monster tossing is kind of entertaining, but it doesn't go much further beyond that. Monsters Overboard here knows what it is, it rocks it in the most middling way possible, and that's really the best we can expect from good ol' Outright.
While we're at it, we might as well talk about a few other licensed games. Look, it's really simple. Whenever a game or even a concept gets popular, an IP holder or publisher is gonna throw a massive bag of money at them and say, do that, but with my thing. In the PlayStation 1 days, no one was tossing that bag quite like Disney.
If it had a movie, it had a video game. The 90s and early 2000s saw Disney Interactive throw darts in every direction with every developer to try and snag a few licensed game sales. But also, several of them were pretty good. I'll play me some Toy Story 2 or The Emperor's New Groove any day of the week, the second of which is actually a Spyro clone. I've talked about that in this video if you want to check it out later, because instead, get ready for Low Poly Stitch.
Come on, Stitch.
Okay.
If you haven't seen Lilo and Stitch, you should. It's good. If you haven't, thankfully, Disney Interactive bit crushed the heck out of a ton of clips from the movie and let you watch them here. Coming out in 2002, a bit too late for the PlayStation 1, this here is essentially Crash Bandicoot. Explosive vases, bouncy physics, freaky Bandicoot spin, it's all here. The only thing we're missing is Stitch doing a little whoa, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was just a reskin. Overall, it's actually not that bad. Well, besides Stitch's bedometer. The developer Blitz Games were one of those studios who got tossed licensed stuff all the time. They're even responsible for the ridiculous Burger King trilogy. It's just one of the most blatant Bandit clones I've ever seen, and there's a lot. Looking at you, Eminem, shell-shocked.
I'd say that's a wrap.
Disney's Lilo and Stitch just has this really stupid thing where you have to go through the levels on this confusing map that will loop around, and in order to unlock new paths, you have to replay the stages to collect whatever item it asks you to get. This whole concept's not obvious either, as it doesn't tell you explicitly what to do from the get-go. At least you get a royalty-free mini of Hound Dog on the menu. Blue Punch Buggy indeed. Speaking of cars, no, not Owen Wilson, I'm sure everyone already knows about Simpsons Road Rage. A few years prior to Hit and Run and really early on in the 6th generation of games, Simpsons Road Rage is very egregiously crazy taxi. So much so that Sega sued everyone involved and settled out of court. Whoops. As a kid, I loved Road Rage. The concept is the most simple. You play as one of the citizens of Springfield as you drive around picking others up and dropping them off. Don't worry about collateral damage or bodying small children on the road. Pick up whoever and go, go, go. It turns out the little 12-year-old me might have just been on that Dreamcast copium though, because this one's okay at best. Road Rage is very limited on actual gameplay options, which truthfully is similar to Crazy Taxi. You've got a mission mode with quick-paced objectives, a leisurely driving mode, and then, well, Crazy Taxi sans the offspring. Actually, when you take the fun punk rock out and replace it with constant Simpsons quotes, that experience is tiresome after a while. It's the type of game you want to mute the audio for and play your own, kind of like how you could replace Tony Hawk soundtracks on the Xbox with whatever you ripped yourself. There's only so many times I can hear people ramble before I have to turn it off.
What the?
You don't answer to me, I don't answer to you. Grocery store, please.
Road Rage is still something you can have a lot of fun with, but I think it's more important as a stepping stone the developer, Radical Entertainment, had before launching full force into Simpsons Hit and Run, the much higher regarded release. They sure don't make these kinds of micro arcade games anymore. Oh, I gotta say real quick, Crazy Taxi's coming back though? I guess when I released my bad remakes video a month ago, Sega was listening, immediately said bet, and are putting together what I think is a new compilations of Sega Ages now. So I guess maybe they will make games like that now. If only they'll do something with Skies of Arcadia.
Which I actually just opened the other day to take a look at the disc and found that my label's peeling off. Awesome. You know what never stopped though? Mario Party clones. Those things have been coming out since the beginning of, well, Mario Party. I already did a Mario Party clones video a couple years ago, and I have no idea how I missed Muppets Party Cruise.
Brought to us by Mass Media, the people who gave us Shrek Super Party and Pac-Man Fever. You already know where this is going. Except you don't, because Muppets Party Cruise might be one of the worst of these ever. I hope you like minigames.
Oh, 65. Oh, 69. I, 30.
The This is the video game equivalent of waterboarding. Still one though. Typically in one of these, you want to have really fun mini games to detract from the luck-based factors of the board game, but instead, I'm having a hard time making sense of the whole package. You do a plinko board for your movement number and then have to very slowly move your character through the deck. But if you land on a mini game, your turn ends and then you can bet the money you pick up for a point advantage in the game. And also all of them suck. It's like a retirement home of mini games. You've got bingo, of course, there's shuffleboard, and the intro to Final Fantasy 15. Look, if you're messing up basic mini games, you don't stand a chance. Apparently, some people like this one. It's got decent production value. The board game systems aren't pure luck, and they actually recorded some Muppet bits. I just thought the actual game part was rough. Also, maybe this is just me, but I'll never accept seeing Muppets with feet. They're horrifying.
We shouldn't let this spoil our vacation. Let's party, guys! Yeah!
Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine. How come we aren't talking about this more? The mid to late 90s saw a brand new type of platformer come into the limelight, the natural progression of the cinematic platformer. The most famous and very specifically unique was, and still is, Tomb Raider. Yeah, bringing her up again, sorry. Tomb Raider was very clearly inspired by Indiana Jones and other action-adventure films from the time, so how Indiana Jones ended up as a Tomb Raider clone is, oh, so poetic. But also, this was made by LucasArts in Factor 5, and it kinda rules. Released for the PC and Nintendo 64 in 2000, Infernal Machine is practically a technical marvel on the 64-bit cartridge system, which makes sense when you realize Factor 5 was the one who put this port together. It's got tons of voice acting, big levels with lots of variety, and a very specific type of movement that you would only see from Core. Seriously, it's like 1-to-1. But that's not a bad thing. With this one, just add a little driving. Each level has different puzzles and interesting ways to get through them, some of which involve violence, others having Indy throwing it back inside a vent. You can pick up guns along the way, engage in a little bit of fisticuffs, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. Unless you're not very good at this type of platformer and you take yourself out. I never played this as a kid for whatever reason, but if you're in the mood for some retro Tomb Raider and Indiana Jones, Infernal Machine is a pretty perfect one of those. Sure, the guy voicing Indiana Jones isn't perfect, but it does capture the spirit of the character in the films and gives us a licensed gem that I think time is slowly forgetting. You can actually pick this up on Steam and GOG for $6, and I think it's totally worth it. I never saw that modern Indiana Jones film, and I don't really have any interest. So instead, let's talk about some clones of modern games. Tomb Raider is nearly 30 years old after all, so why not something like Call of Duty, which is almost 20. Oh, the History Channel, Battle for the Pacific. Prior to Modern Warfare, Call of Duty was a totally different thing. It was focused on throwing the player into fast-paced dramatic recreations of historical wars. It wasn't the first video game to use iron sights for aiming precision on non-scoped weapons, but it sure was a huge part of what made that popular. COD wasn't the first World War FPS, it wasn't the first to anything really, but it was the first series to wrap it all together in a big, shiny, AAA Hollywood blockbuster bow tie. Missions were usually straightforward. You had companions running around doing things with you, and level design was replaced with cool fancy set pieces. Medal of Honor, this is not. Call of Duty really blew up in popularity after the first 2 games, and then suddenly every historical shooter and its mom decided to follow suit. Heck, even some new ones were popping up. Men of Valor, Brothers in Arms, Hour of Victory, 3 Words of Power trying to elicit a sense of duty, but none of them could reach the call. Especially not History Channel Battle for the Pacific. I was playing this beginning trench level while watching my friends play Valheim, and its relaxing daytime music was meshed with the sound of constant explosions, kinda like this. I don't really know why the History Channel decided to dip their toes into the video game industry, but leave it to Activision, who also published Call of Duty, to help put this one together. Previously, they released Civil War: A Nation Divided, which was way closer to Medal of Honor, but one look at Pacific, and you know. It's like a checklist of things you've seen before, but also one of the worst put together games you've ever played. Enemies ragdoll in ridiculous ways, hitboxes are consistent, and honestly, it's about as bad as you would expect from the name. A terrible COD clone, but hey, it's one in a million. Speaking of, let's go back to Medal of Honor. This series was real popular, and they continued to do their own thing for several years at the same time as Infinity Ward's banger. That is, until Modern Warfare came out, sold 15 million copies, and dethroned Halo as the definitive console shooter. Don't mind me, just changing the entire landscape of the gaming industry. No big deal. Call of Duty had its copycats, but Modern Warfare was the one that changed Medal of Honor forever. lmao was previously exclusively set in World War II, but in 2010, we'd see Medal of Honor become Call of Duty, beat by beat, trope by trope. If you're looking at the screen and thinking this is a different game, I wouldn't blame you. Medal of Honor Reboot and its sequel, Warfighter, released in the early 2010s to a resounding meh, and playing through them, I can sort of understand. EA wanted to reboot the whole series in an attempt to take share in the shooter category, and what they released were two middling games that were clear attempts to be something that they weren't. Neither terrible, but monkey see, monkey do in the gaming industry, turning a beloved series over 20 years old into a copycat. I think Warfighter gets dunked on a bit too hard, as it's absolutely well made, but the story's all over the place, and it's hard to get invested when it's just nondescript locations, nondescript characters, and endless cannon fodder. I guess most people agreed because the reviews were awful, Medal of Honor was promptly shuttered as a franchise, and the developer Danger Close Games was shut down. Sometimes sticking to your guns is the best choice of action, but even a World War II VR release by Respawn can't put Medal of Honor back on the map. No jokes here, just a resounding On the flip side of the modern mid-dimension, how about a Gears of War clone made by Koei Tecmo? No, I'm not kidding, Quantum Theory. I never got to play much Gears of War, it just wasn't on my radar when I was deep in the RPG lifestyle. But I knows me a clone when I sees it, and Quantum Theory is blatant.
I'm here to destroy that tower. Know anything about it?
Not much. Nobody knows when that tower was made, or even who made it.
Look, we don't gotta front. I think everyone involved in this knew what it was. Gears of War has a very identifiable style of gameplay that's hard to see as anything else. It's actually got a handful of clones too, like Inversion, Binary Domain, Army of Two, but at least those look a little different. Quantum Theory's like, here's a big gruff dude with sleeveless armor holding a giant future gun. Now press down a button to sprint while being able to barely turn. It's nearly 1-to-1. Quantum Theory is horrendously unoriginal, and the absolute definition of okay. It's like the tomato of video games. No one out there seeking out a tomato to eat on its own. But if you stumble across a copy of Quantum Theory by chance, or, you know, picked it up in a bundle or rented it once upon a time, I guess it'll hold your attention for an afternoon, as long as you don't mind looking at shades of gray, brown, and yellow the entire time. It's very rare when I'm unable to say much of anything about something I played for 2.5 hours, which is also apparently more than half the runtime, but they pulled it off. Like a 3 out of 10, would have been at least a single point better if they gave us active reload. You know what does have color and I do have things to say about? Enchanted Portals. Why? I don't usually cover something more indie for a clones video, but this one grabbed my attention by, well, looking exactly like Cuphead. If you haven't tried Cuphead, it's great. It's hard, it's a grand old 2-player co-op experience that's an evolution of the run and gun genre. Maybe not as messed up as Contra Hardcore, but close. It's also noteworthy for being a passion project that took 7 years to create, and looking at the screen, a notable hand-drawn animation style reminiscent of the 30s. There is quite literally nothing like Cuphead. Well, I guess except Enchanted Portals, Cuphead from Wish. I think you could argue in Enchanted Portals' favor that it's just using the same sources as inspiration for its visual style. It's not anything new, but the combination of things they're doing here treads the line into rip-off territory. It's also a run and gun, but worse in every way. The side-scrolling stages take forever as you dash to the side and blast things that are the matching color of your weapon. For some reason, the menu has to ask me for true and false values if I want to play as the second character without spawning the first, which doesn't seem to work anyway. The boss fights seem to take a lot of direct inspiration from Cuphead, but they also didn't seem to understand what made that game work. Boss mechanics feel a lot more slapdash, less deliberate. Anytime you progress from a phase to another, instead of a natural transition, it cuts into into stills. In fact, after the intro animation, it's all just stills. I think this is probably related to the multiple failed Kickstarter campaigns disallowing the developer to raise money for this, but what they put out feels unfinished. It was announced with negative press due to the direct comparison, but beyond that, it just doesn't feel good to play. A shame, because this is a big waste of two great character designs. If multiverse theory is true, there's an alternate universe where Enchanted Portals is getting a Netflix cartoon. Cursed.
That one's no fun. In fact, with the exception of Indiana Jones and Simpsons Road Rage, most of this entire video has been about games that suck. So let's change that. Typical for a clone, but there are some good ones too. Whip out your best pop punk albums. It's time to kick it up a notch with Aggressive Inline.
I swear, every single one of these Extreme Sports Tony Hawk's Pro Skater clones starts with the same intro. Sick tricks, sick licks, and bails. But this time, replace the old nasty board with the coolest thing from my childhood, rollerblades.
I wanna be addicted to roller skating, not crap.
Also, Canada's pride and joy Hoobastank. Aggressive Inline is the rollerblading variant of Tony Hawk, brought to you by the developers of Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX, or more importantly, BMX XXX. Except, it's not bad, it's good. They put a lot of emphasis on the grinding aspect, since there's not a board to do tricks with, and I think movement's a lot of fun. You're hopping around, bouncing off the walls, doing fakies to go backwards. It's definitely not perfect though. Interacting with NPCs can be a bit wonky.
Hey kid, wanna earn $10? Do me some. Let's see. Do your thing.
You can tell that Z-Axis were in the middle of developing BMX XXX. Some of the physics here are, Bubble Bubble Part 2. Aggressive Inline is one of countless Tony Hawk's Pro Skater clones from an era where they were a dime a dozen, and generally, they were fun. I'll play this, or Wakeboarding Unleashed, or Dave Mirra, or Disney Extreme Skateboard, or anything but skateboarding evolution any day. Sorry, Snake.
Only thing you think about. I promise I'll be more careful about how I use the thing.
Keeping it with extreme sports for a bit longer, has anyone played Downhill Domination? I was introduced to this last year and didn't realize that the world needs more SSX clones. Yeah, SSX. Sure, you're looking at bikes, this ain't snow, but this is straight up tricky. Taking a bit of inspiration from the snowboarding classic and a retro banger Road Rash, Downhill Domination is a game where you ride down the steepest of hills while beating the crap out of everyone you pass. Some of the mountains are difficult to scale down, but you can approach it in all kinds of ways. You can stick to the path if you want, or jump over the entire thing and likely wipe out. This game is pure and simple. It's fun, and while you can beat all the content in a single day, anyone who's cool can replay this one over and over. I originally played this in a random hotel room, so I wasn't sure who made it, but I was surprised to find out that it was Santa Monica and Incognito, which totally makes sense. Absolutely a 100% recommend to anyone. The world needs more SSX clones.
I'd also like to see some more Sonic clones. And not just in the 2D way, I'm talking 3D. Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, despite what you might think of it, have a legacy. I kind of like them myself. Yet it seems like for some reason, no one really wants to tackle the 3D Sonic style of gameplay. Maybe there's a really good reason for that, but at least one person's tried. Not just once, but twice. We're talking about Spark the Electric Jester 3.
We've actually covered Spark 1 and 2 in the past. The first is a classic Sonic clone that injects Kirby with a dose of speed, and the final result is a solid time you can get for less than $10. The sequel was the developer Fepard Games' first attempt at the 3D dimension, and it was something I enjoyed a good bit. You also play as Spark, the Metal Sonic version of Spark. There's a lot of lore here, don't worry about it. Spark the Electric Jester 3 is what happens when a fan of a very specific thing decides to take matters into their own hands. Spark 3 is fast and furious. It's all the best platforming elements of Sonic Adventure tossed together into a package that makes sense and has a lot going for it. The addition of hand-to-hand combat makes the Sonic package feel more complete. The additional platforming and parkour elements make me feel like, well, the Blue Hedgehog. This is the type of game that 3D Sonic should have strived to be more like, and for an indie project, this thing is ridiculous. The titular character Spark is kind of silly. I mean, the dude's a jester, all of the characters are anthropomorphic things, and there is a lot of backstory and characterization through all of the 3 titles, but if you're anything like me, you're mainly in it for the platforming action. Spark knows what it is, it wears the badge loudly with pride, and anyone who has any kind of fondness for that Dreamcast era of Sonic the Hedgehog should play this. Hell, all 3 of these without any hesitation. Also, yes, brace yourself for a killer soundtrack. I I can't play anymore, you get the point.
All right, fun time is over. No more. We got one more for the day, and it's something that I've held on to for a really long time. I wasn't really sure how to talk about it. The PlayStation 2 has a metric frick ton of video games, a lot of which are being lost to the realms of obscurity, especially if they didn't make any impact upon release. For instance, did you know Sega Sammy made a Metal Gear Solid clone? Not just that, it was directed by Swery, the guy behind Deadly Premonition. This here is Spy Fiction. The game that allegedly blows other PS2 titles completely out of the water, according to the Game Informer review on the back of the box. Let's check it out.
Blood! But he will go to hell. Oh, poor baby.
Nanotech Incorporated, huh? Yeah, I know what we're looking at today. Spy fiction is absurd. The stealth genre of video games is no stranger to absurdity. Metal Gear Solid kind of set that precedence with its mix of espionage and supernatural elements. But most everything else plays it straight or very military, like your Splinter Cells or insert random PS2 stealth game here. If you're leaning into bizarre narrative beats, Metal Gear is the bastion of the genre, so anything that treads that line is, well, gonna feel like a clone. Spy fiction does not stray away from that.
Search for the prisoner. Immediately.
Yes, sir.
I mean, even the menus look and function exactly the same. Spy fiction has you take control of one of two spies. There's Sheila Crawford and old Billy Bishop. The timeline of this zips all over the place. It starts with a break into a place that looks very similar to Shadow Moses. There's dudes in white suits walking around as you sleuth their way through every corner possible. It feels decent enough. You gotta hold down the L1 button to do anything espionage related. You can listen in on conversations if you're nearby to people talking, and you can even attach yourself to the ceiling. That's kind of cool. Spy fiction's main gimmick is garbology. No, I'm not saying that's bad. I mean, like garbs, clothing. You can take pictures of enemies with or without face data and use an active camo suit in order to transform yourself into them. Then you can walk around like you own the place, or in some cases, have the wrong disguise and fail spectacularly. Just make sure not to bump into the wrong person.
You're not a guest. Maybe you are. Sorry.
Oh, okay. That was easy. Spy fiction is freaking weird. I can tell where the inspirations were, but you can also smell the Metal Gear Solid all over this thing. They go full bonkers nonsense with the storytelling, and even though the main stealth gimmick is kind of cool, it's not enough to save it from its uninspired level design. I feel like I'm walking through other better games anytime I'm moping around. Also, everything is in stages, so you'll enter an area and have no idea what to do. Go here, it says, as you look around for a specific thing when it all looks exactly the same. I do like the fact that there's two playable characters with minor differences. For instance, Billy Bishop can't garbology into women, which honestly is a shame. We should all be able to garbology each other.
I'm ready for it. There's no turning back for me now.
The main things holding this back are the stark unoriginality and less than subpar gunplay. Spy fiction has a camera way closer to the player, and if you're aiming around, it'll yoink the camera dramatically to the side to lock on, which can then be lost in an instant if another enemy comes by. It makes required combat sequences a huge pain, especially when it's not even clear you're supposed to fight. Spy fiction shines when it's doing weird spy things like listening in on conversations, snapping pictures of people from a distance, and swapping outfits. There's a bunch of noisy jargon they recorded anytime you can eavesdrop on a conversation, and some of it is ridiculous. But unfortunately, all in all, it leaves a lot to be desired. In Metal Gear and even Splinter Cell, you're presented with a lot of different ways to tackle problems. Spy fiction says, do this the way we intended, no messing around, and that's its biggest weakness. Stealth action's no fun when there's only one way. This was one of the last games Sammy released before merging with Sega in 2004, and that's probably why a lot of people have never heard of this. It had practically no marketing and isn't even that valuable for a game from its time. I think there's a lot of cool things going on here. It just doesn't quite reach the level of Metal Gear. Considering MGS deals a lot with clones, nothing truly beats the original. Though this campiness comes close.
Back in the hole. Back in the hole.
So there you have it, a bunch of video game clones and ripoffs that you hopefully haven't heard of. If I had to pick one game from this video for people to play, it would probably be Downhill Domination, with Spark the Electric Jester and Indiana Jones coming in closely behind that. I love it when I get to experience something new for this channel, and nothing quite beats riding down a mountain and slapping a dude in the head with a lead pipe. It's great. What's a clone or ripoff you've played that you don't think anyone else has? Let me know down in the comments and maybe I'll get to it one day. I actually had a big list of things that I wanted to talk about, but I decided to spread them out, otherwise this video would never end. I just know there's some ridiculous Amiga or early DOS games out there to talk about, and we'll get to them one day. If you liked the video, check out the sponsor, check out the Patreon, buy a t-shirt at the Pixel Empire. Y'all know what's up. Also, this is gonna be the last time I record a video in this location as I'm going to be moving, so say goodbye to all the blue around me. I'm gonna try something new next time, which also means get used to a janky set behind me. It's gonna be changing. Gonna be doing my best to beat Forspoken 100% in a corner worthy of r/male living space. Anywho, I've been Austin. Happy New Year, thanks for watching, and catch me next time when I do the thing that I just said I was gonna do. Yep. Thank you all so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Aaron Kwolek, Benna Oswald, Blackfoot Ferret, Blake Thomas, Cheeks, Chris Shelton, Doug Prince, DX Buster, Dylan Snyder, GM Pinks, Hey Quiggles, Idlevice, Jay Roos, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Kevin Zanowski, Karen Arter, Rare Find It, Ryan Talbert, and Vox. Thank you all so much for the generous support. All right, like I just said, last video at this old set, and honestly on to new things. It's kind of the end of an era. It's been this way since just before COVID really hit, so it's interesting to get out. I'm actually really excited for video games here in the next few months. The January, February timeframe is kind of nuts, and I'll be using a little bit of break time to play some of that. Anyway, it's time to try to get my cats adjusted to a new living situation, which is gonna be a total nightmare, so I'm gonna go do that, and I'll catch you guys next month. Also subscribe, do it. I wanna hit 300K, bye.